Okay, fellow modelers, it's time for the last episode in this build of a beginner level locomotive from kit form. We have three things really to cover in this part 3. So I will start with the fact that we need to do some electrical work and the pickups and so forth on the wheels. We need to add the couplers. Now that should be an easy choice. I mean, the receptacles there, the pockets, the coupler pockets are big enough to accept the KDs. The kit does have the covers for it. The thing you have to remember is that KD couplers are metal. The chassis is electrically charged because the non-insulated wheels are transferring the pickup from the right-hand rail to the chassis and eventually to the motor. So it's also transferring it to the coupler. So if you have a car that you're hooking this up to that has metal wheels, metal axle, you could create a situation where you have a short. And so you have to be, if you're going to go the route of the KD coupler, you have to make sure that that first car has plastic wheels or plastic axles, so you're not creating a problem. So the other option is to go with a plastic coupler of some type. So in all likelihood I'll put KDs on it and just make sure that the first car that it gets hooked up here kind of is always paired with this loco. So couplers, electricity. And then there's a few things to do on the shell itself. One of the first things, and I'm hoping you can see this, on the back of this weight, down in, let's see, I think you can see it. So let me get my hand out of the way. Back in this weight, this whole thing is covered in, so it's like flash, and that's going to interfere and rub on the motor, so I have to break that off. That's easy. I have to add the casting for the compressor, and it's kind of funny because the compressor casting, which is Delrin, has more flash on it than anything else that was in the kit. So I got to clean that up and super glue that on. And if you recall from back in the beginning, the number board that goes into this hole in the center of the front of the loco is missing. It's a brass turning. I have to look for some alternative for that. And I would love to put a working light in here, but at this point any effort I've made to try to loosen this weight so I can remove it, so I can get the wiring in, has failed, and I am really afraid to exert a lot of force and break the plastic shell, so I'm still toying with it. The front of the loco is not glued, so I can pull that off, and I'll try pushing from this end, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to take a drill and drill through that weight so that I can get the wires in. So, you know, it makes it a little bit harder, but I think it's worth the effort to get a working light in there. So those are the things we're going to cover in this third and final session. So we'll get on with the video. Well, time for a little electrical work. In the kit, they did provide one wire connector that we are to solder onto the red wire. So I put a little bit of rosin flux here, and I'm going to tin both the inside of the connector and the end of the red wire with a little bit of solder. Get a little solder onto the tip and tin that. Picking this up. Alright, now let's see if we can get this soldered in. That looks good. I'll let it cool for a second and then bend over those two flaps on there. When you're wiring up your motor on your locomotive, before you get everything solid, you want to make sure that you have the right wire going to the right lead here, so that when you put your power into what you think is forward for the locomotive, your locomotive actually goes forward. So I've already tested that to make sure that the blue wire goes to this ground here that's actually picking up its power from the chassis itself, and the red wire is going to go to the insulated wheels that have a brass pickup that we have to install. Let's take a look at that pickup a minute. So here's the pickup, and it came flat, and what I've done is curved the ends down to wrap around the wheels a little bit. Let's see if you can, I think you can see that. And all I did was lay it over the end of my round file and push it down a little bit. I test fit it. It looks like it's going to be a good fit on those wheels. So the next step here is to bend these clamps down. Let's see what we got here. Okay, it looks good. Just going to get a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and I have a rag here, put a little isopropyl alcohol on it. Let me zoom this back out. And I just want to wipe off any excess flux that's on that connector. Okay. Put that flux away so I don't get it over everything. And now what they want us to do is coming in somewhat from the rear to get this out of the way here, the wire. This is where you're going to get to see my fumbling fingers in action. Okay. Altogether, I'm going to need the screw, a brass washer, and that threaded through this connector. And I'll give it one more try on film, and if not, I will shut the camera off and do the next 25 tries without the camera watching. All right, you've seen enough of my fumbling. I will take care of this off camera and be back after it's in. Okay, it really didn't take me 40 attempts. I actually got that screwed in on about the second attempt after I turned off the camera. So the red wire now is coming down and is screwed into, if you recall, that insulated rubber insert that we did as step one in the build, and then through the brass pickups that are rubbing on the top of those two wheels. And this is what I think should be forward. Let's see, maybe I'll zoom out a little bit first. You can see a little movement. That should be forward, and that should be reverse. Just trying some low speed activity here. And there we are. So electrical work at the moment is done, and on to next steps. Okay, I think we have our finished product here. Let's just take a look at a couple of things that took place. I got the KD couplers on, which I think you can see, front and rear. We have the compressor attached where it belongs. I did give up on trying to drill a hole. I could not get the weight out of the locomotive without breaking it. So I just put the jewels that are supplied in both the front and the rear. And I think I've mentioned a few times that my father-in-law was a machinist. And over the years he gave me loads of little stuff that he had made over the years, and he was an experimental machinist, and so he would often have to make onesies or twosies of things, and along the way as he was experimenting, had extras. And one of the things that he had was a couple actually tiny little brass, let's see if I can get back far enough you can see it. But anyway, these were actually little, I'll call them plugs. They're threaded. They have a split up the shaft, and then they have a rather nice finish on the top. And it actually, with just a little bit of filing, fit right where the number board's supposed to be. So that all took place. And the only thing left to do at this point, it's all wired up, the only thing left to do is to test it on the tracks. And we'll do that when we come back. Okay, here I have her on the test track. It's a log car I have attached to the back coupler, and I put plastic wheel sets on this one here so that there's no chance of it shorting out. So therefore anything I add beyond that is safe also. So now I'll zoom out a little bit and we'll see how she runs. And let's see. Should be forward. Should be reverse. A little noisy, but I'll let it run around the oval for a while. And there it is, folks. I know it's a fairly simple kit, but as I've said before, all the skills that you would use to build this kit are the same skills that you would need to build a more complicated kit. So I'll give it a break for a couple of weeks, and then I will pick a slightly more complicated kit and we'll build that. Let's zoom out just a little bit and you can see the valve gear and stuff operating. There you go. Alright, well that's a wrap. If you enjoyed the video, I appreciate it if you would give it a like, and if you want to stay tuned for additional build threads for both locomotives and other things within the hobby, then subscribe to my channel. And want to thank you for watching and following along, and we'll talk to you soon.